And I see Kathy Humphrey has walked in with her lunch, which she has not even been able to open up yet and start. So now you're going to have to wait. You should have wolfed it down during the video, Kathy. I gave you a couple of minute warning. But we're really excited to have a fireside chat with corporate and nonprofit presidents and top executives, and here to introduce them and to facilitate the conversation, please welcome Dr. Kathy Humphrey, the president of Carlow University.
Good afternoon. I feel like I need to put some energy back in the room. You know, this is the rough hour. I thought, why did we get the rough hour, right? Right at the lunchtime. I'm so glad to be with you, and I'm going to invite the panelists to come on up to the stage, and we're going to get started with this session. We don't have a lot of time, so we can't play around. We got to get this show on the road. While progress has been made, challenges persist. Some argue that legislation alone is insufficient to drive meaningful change. Critics debate the effectiveness of affirmative action policies and whether they truly level the playing field. Lastly, there's ongoing discussion about the role of government versus corporate responsibility in advancing and, more importantly, dismantling DEI. Good afternoon, and as you know, my name is Kathy Humphrey, and it is my pleasure to speak with our amazing panelists today about the impact of the affirmative action changes. These panelists are doing the work, and it is our hope that their experiences will help us all do our work better. They have dedicated their lives to making a difference, and I am grateful to Tim and CEIR for the opportunity to explore how each of the panelists are addressing issues of DEI in this very turbulent time. I have been just really enhanced by the words of Audra this morning, and I'm grateful to the illumination that you have brought to the conversation. So thank you for that. And as I was sitting there thinking, I thought, what all can I do better? And I'm challenged by that, and I'm going to take that challenge on, even not only in this work, but all of the work we do, because in actuality, that is the only way we're going to move the needle, is to really begin to think about how are we going to do this work better in our city. It's not enough to keep talking about this. We really have got to do some things that will change who we are. For who would have thought or ever imagined that in our lifetime there would be a reversal of aspects of affirmative action, causing institutions to abandon the fight to create a level playing ground? Who would have thought? Who would have thought that in 2024 there would be a growing movement among certain states to curb DEI initiatives in higher education and other public institutions? Who would have thought legislation would be submitted and passed to eliminate DEI in various states? Who would have thought that the work of many of our forefathers, the work of them who were imprisoned, not only imprisoned but beaten, run down by dogs and hosed, who would have thought that some of that amazing work would be reversed today? These efforts include defunding DEI programs, prohibiting mandatory diversity training, and restricting the use of diversity statements in hiring and admissions process. Who would have thought? Who could have foreseen that the act of opening eyes to injustice would have been seen as problematic or incorrect? Who would have thought? Who would have thought we would have to have a fireside chat about the ways that we need to enhance DEI in our organizations in spite of attempts to reverse every ounce of what so many of us have worked so hard to do, in which so many of us have tried to make a difference And when we answer that question, are we making a difference, for many of us, we've been able to say, yes, we're making progress, but today we have to answer that question by simply saying, are we making progress? Let me begin by discussing and telling you just a few things that we are trying to do at Carlow, and then I'm going to ask our panelists to do the same for their various operations. So while we must comply with the new laws that prohibit us from doing anything race-based, I'm fortunate at Carlow because our mission is to develop students who will create a more just and merciful world. That is the platform on which we stand, and quite frankly, it is why I decided to do the work at Carlow University. Not that I don't love Pitt, because I do. But it is one of the reasons why I made the decision to walk down the street. Currently, 22% of our students are Black, and we have done that work without using race as a criteria for admittance. We have created programs and curriculum to meet workforce needs, and those programs have assisted us in diversifying our campus. Programs like our new LPN program, where 90% of the first cohort are African American women, many of them single, many of them who will move from making $20,000 to $30,000 a year to, in just 16 months, they will be making $60,000 to $70,000 a year. I am very proud of that work, but that is work indeed, because it's not enough for me to get those women in that program. We have to get those women out of that program into the marketplace. It's not enough just to talk the talk. We've got to walk the walk in a way that it's productive. We are working to create a welcoming environment for our students, faculty, and staff, because we know that if people feel comfortable in our environment, they will come to our environment and they will tell others about our environment. And that is our business proposition in a world where enrollment is king. We have a place for people to go to when they are experiencing justice. We are not blind to the fact that injustice happens at Carlow. And because of that, we have a place and a persons for people to go to. And it is our expectation that they just don't go, but we take actions that make us better, that change us. And sometimes those actions upset others, but we have to take a stand on whether or not we are going to say and be who we say we are. We are examining whether our practices are lined up with our mission to create a more just and merciful world. But let me be clear, we have much work to do, and we are committed to doing that work. Now I'd like to ask the panel, each of them, to introduce themselves and to briefly share with us what steps their organization are taking to promote DEI. And let's begin with a Carlow alum, Sabrina Mosley.
All right. I had a feeling that beauty got to go before all of the other things that are happening on the stage this afternoon. Thank you so very much, Dr. Humphrey, for setting the stage for this conversation. As mentioned, I'm Sabrina Saunders Mosby, and I serve as president and CEO of Vibrant Pittsburgh. Yeah, that's me. That's the person that's been mentioned a couple of times already. If we haven't met, then make sure that we do, so that you can understand why we are involved in so many efforts of partnership and collaboration as it relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and why that is so very important. And so a part of that reason is because of our work being an inclusion partner to close to 140 of our region's businesses, from small startup companies to large corporations with a vested interest in Pittsburgh. That includes global corporations that are either headquartered here or are invested in our work because of their business operations. We have a series of benefits and resources that we provide to help build more inclusive workplaces here in what we are growing to be our most vibrant Pittsburgh. One of the ways that we are working to build those inclusive workplaces is through data and assessment. I am pleased to have my team with me here today in the center, appropriately seated, who help to ensure that every aspect of our work is carried out within our region's businesses. Data assessment through the Vibrant Index. Our index, which is in its fifth iteration this year, we're really proud of, assesses diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts based in a number of criteria areas that you can measure year over year, build programs and goals associated with those foundational areas for diversity, equity, and inclusion year after year, grow and assess how the region is doing. On June 25th, we will be reporting out to the region on how our businesses are faring, and we hope that you will join us for that presentation to discuss how we measure our impact. And then training and development as well. We know that establishing goals is vitally important, and having policies and procedures in place that will help move the needle, but training and development can help to support assessing those goals. So when you find out where the gaps are and the challenges are, we can develop customized training, and we've been doing that for companies, especially after the murder of George Floyd, where companies came to Vibrant Pittsburgh and encouraged us to increase our capacity so that we could help them build towards their training and development goals, because they were not set up to do so. And then finally, building inclusive environments within workplaces in our communities. We are welcoming new executives to the region. Many people who have come to Pittsburgh, or even folks that are just like me, born and bred, have a difficult time getting ingrained in community and finding spaces of inclusivity. And so we are organically finding ways to connect each other, finding ambassadors that can set a stage and build relationships with folks so they can be committed and rooted in our region. And all of those things are an effort to help balance the narrative. We talk about what's wrong, we talk about the problems all the time and the challenges that we face here as a region, but there's a lot that's going well, and that is right about this region as well. And so we help to make sure that that's not masked.
Thank you. Jason?
Jason Jones, Vice President of Community Development for Dollar Bank. Dollar Bank has a strong commitment to diversity, and equity, inclusion, and it's ingrained in our culture. From the very beginning, 1855, I know this is history, I just talked to someone in the hallway that a lot of people didn't know, but in 1855, our founder, Charleston Quintin, founded the idea that you can open up a checking account with just $1, which at that time, you had to open up with $50, most banks. And that was the equivalent of $2,358 to open up just a checking account, right? So he had the idea that you can open up with just $1, and the everyday person could do that. In 1890, here in Pittsburgh, a black man got a mortgage, which was super, super unpopular. They closed banks down up until 1964, where the CEIR Act came in, for giving black folks mortgages. And we gave one to a black man, a barber, in 1890, my bad, in the Hill District. Up until the 1970s, women weren't allowed to open up a checking account unless they were attached to a man, their husband or their father, right? And that was up until the women's right? Well, Dollar Bank were allowing women to open up accounts for women in the 20s, right? And so, again, that's then. Today, you know, we really kind of look at our core, which is we strive on integrity, empathy, collaboration, inclusion, community, and independence. And so it's not by accident that you've seen us be very intentional and impactful who we support and how we support. So you see us with Juneteenth, you see us having, we've actually had Sabrina on for our Women's History Month, and very intentional about Black History Month. We're very intentional about Hispanic History Month, and really kind of looking at that. We've also did or supported a report for the LGBTQ plus community that looked at businesses in the Pittsburgh region. So if you have a chance, go to Three Rivers Business Alliance. They have put that out, but we help support that, and really kind of looking at what we're doing in the market around that. We've hired folks in spaces, Dr. Paul Spradley, who integrated in making sure that we're making deep impact. And then also we have a hiring manager that really looks at Dave Hunt and a couple other folks that look at how we are represented in the banking space. One of the issues are capital, right, for small business. And so if you have a bunch of lenders that don't look like a lot of the businesses that are out there, we're being very intentional about who we hire, how we hire, and what they look like and what they represent. We also are working with the Homeless Children's Education Fund to bring in, and through the Learn and Earn, I think the mayor had brought that in, but we have 2 interns that we'll have this summer to really kind of get them to understand that banking could be sexy. I know in the 3rd grade, no one raised their hand when they said, hey, who wants to be a banker in the 3rd grade, right? No one said that, right? And so with that said, there are a lot of things that you can do in the back office. I think when people think of banking, they think of teller, front-facing folks, but there's marketing. There's people that we need for, really kind of our social media, lawyers, community development folks, right? Sadly, and lastly, in my field in community development, of all the banks, there's only 2 black people in community development. They both work for Dollar Bank. That has to change.
How's it going to change?
Again, bringing in the youth, right, to get them to understand. So bringing in, we had 2 interns last year from Homeless Children's Education Fund. We have 2 this year. And then also kind of creating that space of understanding wealth. I know when I was young, I heard in my household that the bank's taking all my money. So when I got older, I didn't want to work for the place that took all my mom's money, right? And so changing that narrative and understanding the rules to the game and understanding how you could win, right? And so I think those spaces are important. The final piece, and we didn't talk about it just yet. I don't know if it's going to be asked later, and I may repeat, but we are doing something unprecedented. Dollar Bank hired me and allowed me to come in and open up an account that is for 15-year-old non-custodial. So it's the only bank in the United States doing it, which means that you can be 15 years old, open a checking account, and you not have a parent attached to it, right? And in that, you can't open it up and just be 15 and walk off the street. You have to have at least an hour of financial literacy, at least. But at most, we keep it going. But we'll talk more about it because I'm done on that end.
Sounds good. Dr. Bullock?
Good afternoon. Quintin Bullock, President for the Community College of Allegheny County. The Community College of Allegheny County's mission really is centered around preparing individuals in a complex global society by providing affordable access to high-quality career and transfer education delivered in a caring, innovative learning environment. And we build our institution on several initiatives. Number one, we created the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and it was important to show the impact by having the office report directly to the president so that any actions that the office has to implement has the full support of the office. Number two, we created a Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion strategic plan that clearly includes several strategies and initiatives that is inclusive and engaging of the college community. One of the first initiatives that we did was we developed a dictionary, a DEI dictionary. And the reason for that, there's so much misunderstanding, confusion, use of terms, and we wanted to ensure that everyone had access to a dictionary that would allow persons to be able to review and discuss terms with each other if in question. I thought I brought one with me. Oh, I did. So we have this published for every employee to be able to have in order to understand terms. It's available on our website, and it's made a difference because it educates our team. We do diversity institutes where we bring our faculty, our staff into conversations, difficult conversations that allow them to better understand their sides. And then we put in place a diversity fellow because we want to diversify our teaching faculty. We have made a commitment to ensure that we always have someone as a fellow with the goal that he or she would be able to become a full-time faculty member within the college when a position opens. With a recent loss of our dear colleague, Dr. Ralph Proctor, we are opening a new fellow to support the opportunity to expand on the legacy of Dr. Proctor, as well as expand in opportunities to further engage in various DE&I activities across the county as a whole. From an educational perspective, we're very committed in ensuring that we bring in our diverse, underserved populations into the institution. And we've been very intentional in developing programs that are focused on laddering credentials, that credential from a certificate to the associates that seamlessly transfer to our four-year colleges and universities. We've made a commitment to bring access to emerging high-demand fields into a center area of the city. This past January, we opened our 60,000 square foot Center for Education, Innovation, and Training, focused on the advanced manufacturing, cybersecurity, industrial manufacturing components, and a new School of Culinary Arts, so that diverse populations can easily access the training that pay high wage. We also have diversified our teaching faculty administration, which gives a sense of hope when they look at the leadership and they look at our student body. There's an opportunity to see, I can also do that. We're active in the community. I've served on Vibrant Pittsburgh. We've been recipients of the Vibrant Pittsburgh Index. We are very committed to diversity and inclusion, and I'll end by stating we fund what matters most by the 5 commitments: a commitment to care, a commitment to serve the whole community with a focus on social justice, a commitment to build a culture of equity on campus, a commitment to identify and dismantle campus structures and breed disparities, and the redesign of the college for equity, and a commitment to fund what matters most. So we put our money where it matters to make a difference in the students and the community that we serve.
Thank you.
Eric Wells, Pittsburgh Regional Transit Deputy Chief Human Resources Officer. PRT has a priority goal to have a workforce that matches the community that it serves. We feel that we're doing that, but our goal is to exceed that goal in certain areas. Over recent times, we at PRT have worked to create a diversity, equity, and inclusion department, which also creates a program in that regard. We have created employee resource groups in the areas of African American groups, veteran affairs, and the LGBTQ community. We've developed mentoring programs in each specific group where individuals in those categories can seek mentorship to progress throughout the organization. The program is, we're hopeful that the program is growing throughout the next year.
So, thank you. Give him a hand. Give him a hand. So here's the question. It's not on the sheet, sorry. We're all doing this work, but we're not making very much progress. If what the data says is true, right? So what's stopping us? Like, these programs are wonderful. The things we do are wonderful. We're all proud of our entities. But what is stopping us from making real progress, and what do we need to help everyone in this room understand what has to happen if we're going to really make real progress in Pittsburgh?
Can I start, Dr. Humphrey?
Sure.
Because I want to, there are a couple of questions in the question, though, because we're not making progress where specifically. Because if you look at each of these, and I know this wasn't intentional, but of the amazing Vibrant Pittsburgh members that are on the stage with me and the work that they're doing in different lanes, right, with different priorities and goals, right, different workforces and areas of focus, there's progress, right? They're seeing progress, they're seeing growth, and they're not stagnant. They may not be happy with every turn and every outcome, but there's progress. If we look holistically, we know that everyone's not a member of Vibrant Pittsburgh, but that there's work being done behind the scenes, especially in 2024, where companies are being more silent about the work that they're doing, considering the most recent affirmative action case that you mentioned and challenges related to financial and legal risk that we're now faced with, considering some of those, the social political environment that we're in. And so when companies are now not being as performative as they were right after the murder of George Floyd and being more silent about the investments and work that they're doing today, as well as some who were not committed at all and were just checking the box, going back and falling back into those bad habits again, it's hard to measure what the actual standard of progress is supposed to look like. For us, it has to be individual. And it has to be communicated.
Yeah, so what I'm worried about is this. So every one of us on this stage and most of the folks in this room do not represent a large portion of Black Pittsburgh. And I'm concerned that when we're measuring these kinds of activities, but we're not measuring the activities. I got 5 minutes left? Oh, boy. Okay. But are we measuring the kind of activities that really are going to push everybody up, right? And in 5 minutes, somebody's got to say, what do we have to do to start really covering the basis, right? I keep hearing about that there are so many jobs open, but yet our employment rates with our young people of color is not where it should be, right? And they're not getting into fields that are really paying at a higher level. So what should we do?
I'll start. I think one of the greatest needs is retention, because a leader who comes in that's committed, starts a great idea, begins to show measurable impact, and then leaves, then you have to start over. I made a commitment to Pittsburgh. I've been in Pittsburgh 10 years as president for the Community College of Allegheny County, the longest serving, almost the longest serving. I have another few months, and then I'll be the longest serving. And in that commitment, I've outlined several strategies in order to move the needle for the college. And the college is moving. We're making a difference. We're expanding our programming. We are building out and expanding the infrastructure. We're diversifying our teaching faculty. We're engaging across the community to connect underserved populations into the emerging high-demand fields areas. And I feel the numbers are beginning to move. But I know when Quintin Bullock leaves, whatever the strategies that I embraced and implemented and put in place, it is my goal that the staff and the team that I've put in place would embrace that vision and continue that trajectory in moving the needle for the Community College of Allegheny County.
That's good. Eric, do you want to add something really fast? Where's my timekeeper? Okay. You got 2 minutes. All right.
Well, at PRT, we have a range of positions ranging from bus operator to maintenance personnel to engineer, all the way and everything in between. Our bus operators are some of the highest paid non-degreed employees in the countries, making over $30 an hour. At PRT, we have a record of meeting our goals with respect to our workforce, and we intend to do so moving forward.
Great. Jason, you want to do closing remarks?
Absolutely. So again, I think really kind of honing in on understanding what financial wellness is, those types of things are going to broker ideas on how to come in without any pressure, without any aspects. And then we definitely hired a talent acquisition person who is really looking to be committed. She's seasoned, she's fierce, she's great, and she's really looking to implement strategic plans to to make sure that young folks understand that banking could be sexy.
So I'll end by saying we cannot be complacent. We cannot believe that because these legislators who have been active in other cities won't appear here. And we have to have a plan for how we will manage that uprising if it occurs. Because just like it happened there, it could happen here. And if we don't start thinking about how are we going to beat that back, we too can be a part of the tragedy of this D&I work. Thank you for all that you do for our city. Keep on keeping on. Thank you. Now we're going to take a picture. I'm sure this is minutes.
I don't know, do we have time?
Thank you.
Are we doing
Thank you.
Do we have time for a question or two, Marl?
You got about 31 seconds.
31 seconds? Got time for a question, maybe.
All right. Is there a question?
Who's got the question that they'd like to ask? Okay, I got one down here. I know Ron was itching. That's why he asked if we were going to do Q&A.
I just had one, but that's okay. I was the first product of affirmative action coming out of the riot. I moved to Pittsburgh in 1978.
Your time is up.
Let me shout out. Yeah, in 1978. And what was driving everything at that time was the CEOs at Bullock. That was affirmative action, right? You had to meet your 10% goal or your 8% goal, whichever it was. Now, today, we're not allowed to do that. Is that correct? So how can we make an impact? Now, Dr. Humphreys and Dr. Bullock, you guys are leading so you can do a top-down. And that's what we need. We need top-down. Dr. Bullock, I applaud your situation because you're directing it top-down. That's what happened back in 1978. CEOs had an objective. They had to put 10% in their PMS, in their performance goal. Of course, after that, you know, we had the case from the gentleman on the West Coast, Bakke, who stopped affirmative action, right? But what can we do today to make this thing effective and make it really happen? That's what we're missing right now. We got to make sure it can really happen.
So integrating strategies into the core of the company is crucial. What Dr. Bullock shared about having a strategy that can be carried out, goals that can be continued beyond the retention of one leader, right? That become a part of the values of the corporation, that move the needle regardless of who is leading is quite important. One of the things that Dr. Humphrey didn't ask as it relates to how decisions and values and how people are represented is president in companies is based on who's there. All of us being in the spaces that we occupy means that more communities, more voices that matter, that are underrepresented, get represented in those spaces. And so the more that we can integrate spaces and elevate the challenges that are not typically communicated in those spaces, the better. Not that, you know, it is fair that that type of representation is happening, but that is the charge that is upon us to make sure that those things continue to happen as well.
Yeah, and the only thing I will add to that is a little bit of what I believe message that Audrey gave us this morning. One is that we've got to realize how smart we are. And we've got to start applying for top-level positions. We've got to believe why not us, right? And because it starts with us, right? Because I can do things at Carlow that other people might not do, right? And so if I don't use the gifts that I've been given, if we don't use the gifts we've been given to push the agenda forward, it's not going to happen. And the other thing is that we have to be good to each other. We're not always good to each other, right? And we need to make sure that we're not overlooking high potential that looks like us, and making sure that that high potential that looks like us still gets that opportunity, and not being afraid of that high potential that looks like us to sit beside us. All right, we're out of time, but I could go on. You got me reared up now.